month, but now on a weekly basis. These webinars are recorded and can be viewed online at wesc.ca. Today, our topic is how to create an online training program presented by Brandy Good, founder of BGL Business Solutions. If you have any questions during the presentation, please write them in the chat box. I'll let Brandy decide if she wants to address them during the presentation or after. Thank you so much, Brandy, for joining us today. Please start whenever you're ready.
All right. Thanks to everyone who's here so far. Thanks for carving out some time in your day for our topic. We have a lot to get through. So when it comes to questions, I think what I'll do, I'll keep an eye on the chat. And if there is a question that fits really good into specifically what I'm talking about in the moment, I'll answer it. But then there might be some that I'll leave to the end and come back to. So just because I don't answer your question right away doesn't mean I'm ignoring you. We're just going to kind of prioritize things. So if you do ask a question and I miss answering it, just pop it in the comments again. Okay, so let's get started. So what you need to create an online program. So this would be good for people who want to take what they know, put it online for people to learn from, whether that be a training program, whether that be group coaching program, anything like that, we're going to touch on. So just in a nutshell, oh, my little arrow thing didn't work. So there's kind of 9 things I'm going to cover. And all 9 of these things won't apply in every single situation. These are just kind of generally the things that you usually need. So we might come to a section where you're like, well, I'm not doing that, so it doesn't apply, which is perfectly fine. The next time you create a new program, maybe you will have to do that thing. So here are the 9 things we're gonna talk about today. And I'm going to be throwing out a lot of names of tools and apps and resources at you. So if you want a copy of the presentation, there will be a replay of the webinar. But if you actually want a copy of the PDF slides, I'm pretty sure that Carly said she can provide that to you guys. And the presentation actually has the links in it for you to go visit those sites and those apps. So just a quick heads up, but here's what we're going to cover. So you are going to need a place to host your program, and you might need a way to have online meetings with your people. You might need some graphics for various reasons that I'll get into. You probably need a way to make materials and resources for your people, whether that's like downloadable things they can access or the actual audio and video material for your program. Then, so that's number 5. Number 6, you need a way to make your material accessible to people. So we'll get into the details in a bit. You need a place for people to find out about your program, because if nobody knows, then you're not going to sell it. So a place for people to find info about your program so they can sign up, a way for you to take their money, because that's also very important. And then number 9 is, once your program is running, you probably need a way to communicate with those people. So before we dive in, just a very quick, here is me. So what I love to do, and some of you, I recognize some names in the chat, so some of you will know this, but I love to help other women entrepreneurs get shit done. So what that means is, if you have something in your business that you are trying to accomplish, but maybe you just don't know how to do it, or you're overwhelmed by it, or you just like figuring out those kinds of steps, that's just not your thing, you want to focus on other stuff, then I can come in, I can look at what you're trying to get accomplished, and I can kind of come up with a plan for, okay, here's what technology you need. Maybe you already have a lot of it and you just need to figure out how to get it to work together. So I can help with that. And then just figure out the steps you need to take to make everything work so that you can get your goal done in the end. So that's me in a nutshell. And I want you to stick around till the end. I have a free offer to tell you about. It's kind of like a resource library of stuff that you can use to work from anywhere. So let's dive in to our first thing, which is how will people access your materials? So you might have video, audio, downloads, PDFs, templates, things like that. How are people going to actually get those things? So let's break it down between kind of quick, beginner, intermediate, and advanced solutions. So you should find something in here that applies to you, no matter what stage you are, kind of in your journey of making a program, creating a course, anything like that. So, quick solutions to get your materials to people. If you have Google Drive or Dropbox, those have both free and paid plans. You can load all your materials in there and then share them with people. So that's an easy way. If you have a website, if you can get your materials up on your website and then have like a secret page, or maybe you have a way to password protect a certain page and your students or your members only get that could be a good solution. Or if you really have to, maybe you're just emailing them the materials. So these are just some ways that you can get going really, really quickly for very little money if you're kind of on a shoestring budget. What's kind of the intermediate solution? So again, this is kind of low budget, but with a little bit more functionality. So I like to recommend Member Vault, which is actually a platform specifically for hosting online memberships and online courses. And I recommend it here kind of in the intermediate level because it doesn't have what I call all-in-one functionality. It's really good if you have all the other pieces of the puzzle, but you just need that one place to host your program. And they have a pretty impressive free plan. So that might be something you want to check out. Alternatively, if you don't want to learn something new, did you know that you could technically host a program in a Facebook group? They've added in some functionality that makes it kind of course-like. And so that's an option for you. A Facebook group isn't something I would recommend as a long-term solution because one day that Facebook group could disappear or get suspended or something. So not a long-term solution, but a good way to get going, especially if you are kind of just testing out your material and you're not sure if you're going to, keep going with it. So a Facebook group is kind of a good in-between solution. As for advanced, I recommend two things. So these are, again, course and membership platforms. So the first one is Kajabi, which is what I use for a lot of other things besides just hosting courses. It is really an all-in-one solution. If Kajabi is something that might not be right for you, I also recommend Thinkific, which is a really good platform. It doesn't have as much functionality as Kajabi. So kind of the main difference between the two is that Kajabi is good if you are starting out, but you have a decent budget. And so you need a whole bunch of tools. And so Kajabi typically can provide you with all those tools. Thinkific might be better if you've been in business a while and you already have all these other business tools set up and you just need the thing to host your program because it's not quite all in one like Kajabi is. So that's number one. We're only done number one. Number two, how are you going to meet with people? So if you have a course where you're doing like live Q&As with people, or if it's a group coaching program where you're meeting with people either one-on-one or in groups on a regular basis, you need a way to meet with them and it's not going to be in person. So the easiest way, some tools that probably most people have, Facebook Messenger, because you can do video calls. Facebook Rooms are a new thing where you don't have to be personal friends with a person, you can create a room and invite people to it. And then if all of your people have Apple devices, maybe FaceTime is a solution. So just some kind of quick and dirty ways to set up meetings, either one-to-one or with a group of people where they can easily talk to you and ask questions, and you can engage with them. So that's a good thing if you just need to get going really quick. But what if you need a little bit more functionality than that? Then you might want to look at something like Zoom or Google Meet. And Zoom and Google Meet both have free and paid solutions. If you have a Gmail account, you already have a Google Meet account. You might not even realize it. The difference between generally for Google Meet, the free and the paid is just some extra like screen sharing functionality and how many people you can have in a meeting at one time. So if you are already using Zoom for things, this might be the solution that you want to use for stuff. If you use G Suite and Gmail and Google Drive and all of that, then maybe Google Meet is a perfect solution because you already have that in your G Suite package. However, so a lot of controversy around Zoom, as we all know. So if you need enhanced security, if your program has compliance issues, like if you need to be HIPAA compliant, or there are a lot of privacy and security things that you need to comply with, then you might want to look at something like Microsoft Teams or WebEx instead. Typically, these were solutions that were maybe out of the budget of your average small business owner or entrepreneur, but they have recently created new plans, new lower level plans that are quite similar to the free and the first level of paid Zoom plans. So they're trying to compete, but they do have better security. So that's kind of the difference. They are a little bit more advanced in terms of functionality, so maybe not as user friendly, but if you need that security, then you're going to have to check out one of these. So that's number two. On to number three. How will you visually brand your program? So you might be thinking, okay, why do I have to make graphics? So it could be for a variety of reasons. The easiest one would be that if you were storing your materials online somewhere, you might want to have like a cover photo for them, or maybe your program needs some sort of like logo or single identifying image so people know that this is your program. All the way to when we get into some of the later things, when we're talking a bit more about marketing, you might need to have graphics to put on a landing page to help promote, or graphics on a checkout page, or maybe even get really fancy inside your program with like cover images for the lessons and things like that. So somewhere you might have to create at least one graphic. So let's talk about what you might use for that. So super easy, fastest thing you could do. You could find some stock photos. There is the link. There is a resource to a whole bunch of free stock photos that you can use. Or if your program has, like if you're giving copies of slides, or if you have a workbook or something that you've made, you could take a screenshot of that. Or if you've done a video, you could take a screenshot of part of your video, and that could be your imagery that you're using in your course and for promoting it. So those are kind of the quick and easy things. What if you need it to be a little bit more branded than that? Then you might want to look at some user-friendly graphic design programs. The first one I recommend is Canva. A lot of you are probably familiar with Canva, or you might already be using it. If Canva is not your bag, then you could check out an alternative called Snappa. They both have free plans that are very robust and similar functionality. They're just kind of laid out in a different way that kind of appeals to the different ways that your brain might work. So if Canva, everyone raves about Canva, but if you're one of those people that you're just like, I just don't get it, I don't find it user friendly, I don't like how it works, then check out Snappa. That might work better for you. If you want to go advanced, then you're looking at something like Photoshop. So if you need to get really fancy with your graphics, it might be Photoshop. You might be able to do something pretty fancy in Canva or Snappa, but beyond that, you might need to look at Photoshop. If you are just starting out with graphics, you've never really done anything like that before, don't start with Photoshop. The learning curve for Photoshop is pretty high. So that's why I put it in the advanced solutions, because I think if you're hiring somebody to do your graphics, then go ahead and use tell them to use Photoshop. But if you're doing it and you are starting out, then I wouldn't recommend Photoshop. Okay, I'm gonna pause for 1 second because I think the connection isn't great. And I see some people saying the sound is cutting in and out. So I'm gonna pause for a second and see if there are some things on my computer that I can turn off, or if I can switch off of Wi-Fi. Okay, so now it says my internet is good. So hopefully you guys are all right. So let's keep going to number 4, which is how will you create downloadable resources? So these are going to be like workbooks, PDFs, templates, things that you need to give to your people for either extra material or, it might be homework that they have to complete. And downloadable resources kind of fall into 2 categories. So one, it's just something that you send to them, they download, like they read it. The other thing is where it's something that's interactive, where they're filling it out, or it's a template that they make a copy of and they use for themselves. So keep that in mind as we go through these tools. So beginner stuff. The absolute easiest thing you can do if you've made some sort of resource, you're probably using like Microsoft Word, or you've made like a Google Doc or something like that, and you want to give a PDF to your people. Almost all programs these days have an option when you go to save, you can save it as a PDF or export as a PDF. So that's just the easiest thing you can do. Just make your document the way you would normally make it, and then just save it as PDF, because you don't really want to be giving people editable versions of these particular kinds of documents. So that's absolute easiest. But what if you need something maybe a little bit more interactive or looks a little bit nicer? Then we've got some other solutions. So when you just save a document as a PDF, it's just a solid PDF. People can't like type in boxes and stuff like that. So there's a free tool called PDF Escape. So you can upload your PDF to that and make those interactive boxes where people can type their answers in or select options from drop downs and things like that. So it's a PDF that is more like a form. So this is nice because then you give people the option to, sure, they can download it and print it out and fill it in by hand if that's what they like to do. If they would prefer to download it to their computer and fill it out online, like on their computer, they can do that as well if you've put those form fields in there. If you need more interactive things like templates, or it's something where you're okay with people changing parts of the document, then maybe you are giving them a Google Doc or a Word doc or some sort of spreadsheet that they can use for their own purposes. in that case, you just make those documents, you store them online, or you store them in your course for people to download. If you store them online, you can make it so that people can access them and download them. Lots of different ways you can do that. If you need something, a PDF that looks a little bit nicer than maybe what you can accomplish with a Word doc or a Google Doc, you could always try Canva if that was your go-to for graphics and you really like how it works. Canva, you can actually save files as PDFs as well. So you could make your worksheets and materials and things like that in Canva and then save as PDF. So that's the intermediate. If you need to get super, super fancy, or if your workbooks are quite large, or if you have someone else doing it for you, then again, you might want to look at Adobe again. Their InDesign program is kind of designed for that, for making workbooks and printed materials. The other alternative to InDesign, which is a bit more user-friendly, there's a tool called Beacon, and it's specifically for creating downloads. And so there's kind of built-in templates and design tools that you can use. So it's a bit more user-friendly than InDesign, but more advanced than what you might get with Canva and things like that. So that is your graphics. Next up, number 5, how are you going to create your audio and video material? So if you are pre-recording lessons or materials for people to watch or listen to, either when you tell them to or at their own pace, how are you going to make this stuff? So making audio and video, a lot of people get hung up at that point, and I'll admit, this is when I started doing this kind of stuff. This is for sure where I got hung up too. So hopefully some of these guidelines will help you guys out. But if you're just getting started, just use your phone. So our phones these days, chances are your phone has a much better camera and a much better microphone than what you have on your laptop or your desktop. So if you're doing audio stuff, just hold your phone up to your mouth and do your recording. If you're doing video stuff, either get a little tripod for your phone or prop it up in a nice place and just hit record and then go. That's the easiest way to get your audio or video materials. But what if so that stuff is good if it's just your voice or if it's just kind of you as a talking head. But what if you need a bit more functionality or a bit more features when you're recording? This is now specifically for video. So let's look. You've got a few different solutions. There's actually a ton of solutions, but I didn't want to overwhelm people with too much stuff. So there's a tool called Loom, which is a desktop recorder. So if you need to switch back and forth between your face and something you're showing on your screen, or if you need to show something on your screen, you want your face down in the corner, Loom is a good option. Zoom, which a lot of people don't think of this for doing recordings, but if you already have Zoom and you use it, you're comfortable with it, then use Zoom to record your stuff. Make a meeting with yourself, share your screen if you have to, and hit record. So even though it's designed for meeting with other people, there's nothing to stop you from creating a meeting with yourself and recording it. So definitely use the tools that you already know and love whenever possible. And then alternatively, I like to throw QuickTime in there. This is typically something that maybe only Mac users would be using, but with Loom and Zoom, if you're using those on a free plan, the video quality of the download you'll get it's okay. It's not great. If you want high def versions of your videos, you're going to want to be on a paid version of those plans, of those tools. With QuickTime, you're going to get an HD version no matter what you do. And QuickTime does work on Windows computers. It So the quality of the video will be better. You won't have as much functionality as switching between different things. So just think about what you need to do with your video, what you need people to see. It might be a matter of you use Zoom for these 5 videos, and then for your intro video, you just use QuickTime. I don't know. Switch it up if you want to, but don't feel like you have to. And then if you want to get super advanced, this is what I kind of refer to as like the Amy Porterfield experience. So advanced. If you're going for the studio experience, so this is where you have like DSLR cameras set up, you have like lighting kits, you have a really good microphone, and so you might have something like this. Mine, it's not a high quality, it's good enough quality for me. You might have a thing called a switcher so that you can switch between different cameras. So that's the studio experience. So if you need to go all out and you want your materials to be highly, highly produced, these are the kinds of things that you're going to want to get your hands on. I'm not going to go into details about them though. If anyone here is doing this kind of production, I'd be super interested to know what kind of filming and programming you're doing. Anyway, off topic. So number 6, how will you address different learning styles and abilities? So this is one that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think of. And it's the kind of thing that when you are like completely able-bodied, you don't have any physical impairments or learning impairments, it's the kind of thing that we tend not to think about a lot. But you don't want to exclude people from being a part of your program if they're like the perfect fit, just because maybe they have a hearing impairment, or maybe they have some sort of visual impairment, or just visual processing impairment. So try not to exclude those people because they need what you have to offer just as much as everyone else. So there are some things you can do to make your program more accessible. So this, we're not going to do like beginner, intermediate, advanced, because it doesn't make sense. I'm going to lay it out in terms of the type of content and what you could do with it. So let's talk about video stuff. If you want to make your video content accessible to people who have hearing difficulties, or and alternatively, and then this isn't a physical limitation, it's a geographic limitation possibly. People who have really sucky internet bandwidth, they live in remote areas and they don't get good bandwidth. Watching videos might be an issue, or maybe they have a certain amount of bandwidth they have each month, and videos eat up a lot of bandwidth, much more than audio might. So some ideas. If you have video content, think about doing some of these things. Don't feel like you have to do them all, but start with something, and then as you go, add in more of these things. So you might want to add closed captions to your videos. There's a bunch of services there that will do that. Some are paid, some are free. I use Descript, I use YouTube, I've used Otter. I haven't used Rev directly, but another service I use integrates with Rev, so I kind of use it. I use all of those. So adding closed captions to your videos, not only does it make it more accessible to people, but depending on how people are watching the materials, they might have their sound turned off. Their hearing might be fine, but they still might have the sound turned off. Having the captions there means they can still follow along with your video. Alternative to closed captions, you provide transcripts of your videos. And actually, that will work for audio too. We'll get to audio in a second. So again, there's some services there that will generate a transcript based on what you're saying in your video. Also, one other little tip, Google has this thing called voice typing. And I've used this in the past. And so it's essentially designed for you open up a Google Doc and you turn on the voice typing, and then it transcribes what you're saying for you. But imagine this. Imagine if you had a pre-recorded video. So you turned on the Google voice typing and then you hit play on your pre-recorded video, and then you just walked away. And then you come back when the video is done and it's transcribed your video. So it's a little bit more work, but it is completely free. You just need Google Docs. Then one other thing I wanted to talk about is a tool called Searchy. So this is something, it kind of does all the things. It does closed captions, it generates transcripts, but at its heart, it makes your audio and video content keyword searchable. So just to kind of give you the concept of what that means. So if somebody had a blog and you went to their website and there's a search bar, you search their blog and it looks for that keyword that you've typed in all their blog posts. Now, say they have a series of 50 videos on their website, but you don't want to watch all 50 videos. Nobody has time for that. There's one thing that you're curious about. You're going to have to browse through all those videos and maybe find, oh, okay, I think this one might be about the topic I need. And then you have to watch that whole video all the way through. And what if it doesn't answer your question? So what Searchy does, because it's generating those captions and those transcripts, it actually makes your videos and audio keyword searchable. So you can type in a term or a phrase and it will look for that in all those videos. So not only are you making your text stuff easy to revisit and search, you're making your audio and video content easy to access, to review, to come back to later if somebody just knew you said one thing but couldn't quite remember what it was. So I wanted to make sure you guys knew about that. So that's video stuff. What about audio? So again, if you have all videos, maybe you want to provide audio files of those videos as an alternative, because sometimes audio files, well, not sometimes, audio files will take up less bandwidth. If somebody is listening to an audio file online, it might be easier for them to download because the file won't be as big. And so again, I've given you some tools there that you can use to export an audio version of a video you've done. Although most video editing programs, if you're using a video editor, will have an export as audio option. So there's definitely lots of other things out there. Again, if you have audio, think about providing transcripts so that it's easier for people to kind of revisit things if they don't want to listen to everything all over again. And then the same thing, Searchy, it does the same thing with audio as it does with video. So some handy tools. And then lastly, those downloadable materials. So again, you might need your people to have a bit more hands-on learning, or it could just be as simple as, I've seen those workbooks where it's kind of like a transcript of the video, but there's blanks where people have to fill in what you said. And so that's just a way, the first time I saw that, I was like, this is silly. What's this for? Well, it's a way for people to absorb the information in a different way. If they're listening to the video and they're reading the text and they have to make sure to fill in the blanks, then it just engages their brain in a different way. So that adds a little bit of extra learning absorption for your materials. And then also if you, if you have a presentation, maybe you've done that in the video, maybe it would be good if people also had a PDF copy of that presentation. So again, maybe their internet is not great. So they watch it once and then they're like, oh, my internet's maxed out, or it just won't play anymore. But if you have a PDF copy of your presentation, at least they can use that. So accessibility, some tips and ideas for you guys. It's something that I feel like not a lot of people are talking about, but it's important. All right. Okay, I see some questions. I'm going to come back to those because we're pretty close to being done. So number 7, how are people going to find out about your program? So now we kind of get into a bit of the marketing and sales piece of it. So, you could have this great thing. You've created all these materials. You have them up somewhere online. Now what? How are you going to make money off of all this effort you've put into this program? So you need a place for people to find out info or a way to get that info to them. So we're back to the beginner, intermediate, advanced kind of concepts. So if you're in a hurry, you don't have a lot of other resources, you could promote it on social media. So make posts about your program and direct people to wherever they can sign up, or encourage them to email you or message you, whatever you have to do in the moment. You could also just be directly emailing people that you think might be interested. Depending on your program, be careful with this because of the anti-spam laws. But if you're genuine and authentic and you know someone who you think might be interested, and so you send them a one-on-one email about here's some info, you'll be okay. But if this is what you have to do, you have your Gmail or your Outlook account and you just email people who you think might be interested. You post about it on social media. That's what you got to do. But what if you want to take it kind of to the next level? So if you need more marketing muscle, then you might want to be putting it up on your website. So if you have a website and you have a program, you definitely want to talk about that program on your website. So that would kind of be the first place that you should go to if you're putting up your material. If you don't have a website or you can't actually access your website, if someone else is doing that for you, but you have to pay them a lot every time they touch it, then you could use your email service provider. So tools like ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit, you can kind of like make a page that talks about your program and then email that to people, or you could just put all the information in an email and send it out to your mailing list. So that's a little bit different than just the one-on-one direct emailing. So this is you're actually sending it out in bulk to your mailing list. And then the last thing is you could use some landing page or funnel software. So Lead Pages is a good example of this. It's probably the one that people know the best. And compared to some of the other solutions, probably the most cost effective. It's a little bit pricey, but it's actually the most cost effective. And so that's where, you're creating a specific page for your program and then directing people to that. So if you're wondering, why would I use that if I had a website? Good question. Lead Pages might have a bit more functionality for promoting and tracking things than your website, especially if you're using some sort of free website provider. So that would be the main difference. So you can use both, but you don't have to. Or you could use all 3 of these things in combination. And what if you need even more stuff? Well, if you need to be promoting your program, like I said, those more all-in-one solutions like Kajabi and Thinkific, they have that functionality built in. And so if you're using one of these to host your program, then you can also use them to promote it, to create that page where people can go to find out information and to sign up. And then it just kind of links together really nicely. Number 8, we are coming up on the finish line. How are people going to pay you? This is maybe the most important part. So how are you going to get that money into your bank account? So easy breezy. You could create a PayPal button or share your PayPal link, and that's how people pay you. You could tell people to e-transfer you the amount. These are things that, the e-transfer thing, I wouldn't do this if you were promoting something to a wide audience and to people who maybe don't know you, because they might think, oh, this isn't super professional. But if it's, people who know you and it's a small program, then e-transfer can be okay. What about if you need a little bit more functionality? You might have some software that actually already has e-commerce and point of sale functionality built in. So if you're using some sort of accounting software, like some examples like QuickBooks Online or Wave Accounting, you might be able to accept payments through there. So check those out to see if you already have something that will do it for you. Also look at what you're using for your website or the software you're using to host your program, or if you have like something like Lead Pages. Some of those tools, lots of those tools, will have that e-commerce functionality built in. You just need to see if whatever plan you're on has that built in. But again, use the tools that you have, because things will just link together more smoothly if you do that. Then advanced solutions. So this is more these are good ideas if you have a program that people tend to access or sign up for on the go, so on their mobile phone, or if your people tend to be mobile first. So Google Pay, Apple Pay, Microsoft Pay. These are more technical to set up. That's why I have them in the advanced solutions. So they basically link up with a Stripe account, and you can set them up, but it is quite technical. So you might need somebody to help you out with it. But if it makes it easier for people to give you their money, then it probably would be worth it in the end, because again, it's a one-time setup and then it just works. So consider it depending on who your people are. Are they very mobile? Maybe they will really appreciate these payment methods. Then we've got the last one, number 9. So how are you going to talk with your students? How are you going to communicate with them as your program is going on? This, it might just be you're sending them a message thanking them when they sign up, and then you're sending them a message when they're done. It might be just that. But if you have a lot of live things and live support and meetings going on, the communication is going to be a lot more frequent. So you need to think about it. So if you just need some real quick solutions, maybe you're just emailing them. Maybe you've just created a contact list of your students and you just email them, or you're texting them if you want to give up your phone number. Or maybe you're using a messenger, like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or something like that, to just message back and forth for support and giving them updates and things. So that those are things that pretty much everyone already has in some form. But what if you, again, need more marketing muscle with your communication? You want to look at an email service provider like an ActiveCampaign or a ConvertKit, where you can bulk email those people, because maybe you want to send out regular updates, or maybe there was something that changed in the course and you want to let them know, or maybe you want to send reminders to complete certain steps in the program or homework assignments, or maybe if they are falling behind, you want to send them a gentle nudge. So if those are the kinds of things that you want to do with your program, then you want to look at an email service provider. Also, and this is super popular, you have your course hosted over here, but all of your communication and support is happening in a Facebook group. So that's something that a lot of course and program creators are using now. It's just because it's so easy to set up, and then people can ask you questions and you can give updates, but they can also chat with each other. So if that is something that's important, that your people can network and support each other and maybe even answer each other's questions and get feedback on things, a Facebook group is a good solution. Then advanced. So an advanced solution, if you want the most automation when it comes to your communication, you might want to utilize the features inside your course platform. And so I use Kajabi as the example because it has a bit more functionality than Thinkific in this respect. So it might be that you're actually using something from all three levels of this, right? You might be sending out automated notifications from your course platform, and you might have a Facebook group to do just general support and discussing the lessons. And then you might be using text to answer students' questions one-on-one. Totally up to you. Totally depends on what you need to do with your course or your program. So we're at the end. That was a lot. So I want to pause for questions, and then I'll tell you about the free resource library. So I'm going to browse through these questions. So if you have questions, get them in there now. I'm going to take a drink and I'm going to scroll up and see what I have missed. Okay. Oh, I went too far back. So Jill, Finn, hi. I love Zoom. I love Zoom too. Okay, Jill was saying, I've been experimenting with lighting on Zoom calls recently. Not all of us have the best setup in our home offices. Yeah, shout out to those of you whose home offices are temporarily in the basement where it's dim and dark. Alternatively, I'm not in a basement. I'm in my office. There's a window right in front of me, but it is so like the weather is just shitty, right? So the light's not great. So I actually have a ring light. But it keeps getting darker throughout the afternoon. So I've been like turning up the brightness on the light. So Jill says, I have a lamp without a shade and a natural light lamp that I set up on either side of my desk to get better lighting. Yeah, and I did something similar to that before I had my ring light. I was just, I had a couple of desk lamps and just like putting them at different angles. And I actually experimented with different light bulb types. Like now you can get light bulbs that are like soft lighting or bright lighting or outdoor lighting. So just getting the best that I could. So, yeah, you don't need a full lighting kit. You just might have to experiment with not only how many lights you have, but where they're positioned. So, definitely experiment with that kind of stuff. But for sure, I would recommend the ring light because you can get small ones that are fairly affordable, and then you just have the one light and it's good. Okay, so next up is Jolene. Hello. Every time I download a fillable PDF, it saves as a blank document even after I have filled it out. I've tried saving, downloading it, and then filling it out and still saves as a blank document. Yeah, so I've had this too. And so what happens is that if you, what I found anyway, so if there's a PDF online and you hit download, and then when you click open, if that document is opening up in your browser, nothing you do will save. You have to go and open it with whatever program on your computer opens PDFs normally. That's not your browser, because then whatever you do will save. So depending on what you've got, like if you have Adobe Reader on your computer, if you open it with Adobe Reader, then you can make changes and save them and they will stick. I've got a Mac, and so when I open PDFs, it opens in a program called Preview. And so the changes I make there, they stick. But if you just download it, hit open, it opens up in your browser. So it looks like you're saving stuff, but you're not actually saving anything. So I hope that's what is happening, because then that's an easy fix. It's just getting in the habit of just not clicking open right away. to open on your browser. I know that's a frustration with PDFs that a lot of people have had. All right. Erin. Hello, Erin. Long time no talk. Have you studied mining networks? I have not. I have heard of them. I have a list of stuff to look into, and they're on the list, but I haven't. I don't know enough to talk about them. So I'll maybe bump that one up in priority for tools and resources that I need to look at. Okay, Barb, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yes, this is being recorded right now, and it'll be up on the WESC website. And you can also ask for a copy of the slides if you need to. Okay, Andrea, what are your thoughts on virtual backgrounds? Okay, so I think if you're just doing like less formal, more casual calls with people, virtual backgrounds are fine. If you're doing something that's going to live on for a long time, like materials for a course, then you would want your virtual background to look as good as you can make it. Sometimes what happens is that people, they'll use a virtual background, but it ends up looking worse than if they had just like let their office show. So it kind of depends on what you've got going on behind you. So if you need to record stuff and the best space you have, the background is super, super busy or might be distracting to people, then, try out a virtual background, do a just quick test, and then kind of evaluate how it looks. Yeah, I would almost say if you're doing stuff for a course and it's video that's going to kind of live on for a long time and you do want to hide your background, hey, my whole thing crashed. I'm back. Okay, I have to scroll back to, oh yeah, we were talking about backgrounds. So I would almost recommend getting a physical like background. You can get like Amazon will have them, but probably a lot of local printing places could do something like that for you, or like I think people have bought them at Michael's, where it's just like something that's on a stand, and those tend to look a bit nicer, and depending on how the size that you need, aren't too expensive. Okay, so Rubo wants to know a ring light. Oh, so if you ever see one of those little circle lights, mine is a little bit big. Oh, I'm gonna knock over all my stuff. This is a ring light. Now I'm just gonna put it on the ground because I won't be able to get it back up. That's a ring light. So it just kind of, it diffuses the light so you don't have like a big spotlight on your face. Finn, what would be your favorite organic or paid funnel for an online workshop? Okay, so we're getting into a little bit of marketing stuff. Again, it depends on the complexity, probably on the price point of your workshop. The more you're charging for a workshop, the more you have to do to lead people into that thing. So that's why a lot of people recommend doing a webinar for an online course or group coaching program, because people need the commitment to register and show up for a webinar that's just a higher level of commitment. So then they're more primed to buy. But if it's a, just a 1 hour workshop that you're doing and it's $25, then it might just be a series of like social media posts and a couple emails. You could put paid ads together, say on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, to get people into that. So it kind of depends in the end, the price point of what you're promoting and the size or complexity of it. Jewel, what would you recommend for an online course where you have to observe what they are doing, like you're doing a yoga class? So then you're probably going to want to use something like Zoom or Google Meet, where everyone is on camera at the same time so that you can see them and correct them. That's probably the easiest thing. So the whole program is just a series of online meetings. Yeah, I think that's probably best. Any other questions? Free resource library. Thank you, Barb. I would have forgot. Okay, so next. So I've got this resource library that I put together. If my slide will advance. It won't advance. I don't know, Carly, if you can help me out with that.
It seems that we're having some technical difficulties here, so I'll just close up the webinar for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I will be emailing out a copy of Brandy's presentation along with the links that she mentioned, so you'll definitely get a copy of those right after this webinar is ended. As well, the webinar will be back up on our website by the end of the day today, so you can rewatch it. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.